Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and this is a video I've been waiting to do for the longest time. This is what I've been waiting to do for the longest time. There's so much made about who did what on the Fantastic Four and the inspiration for the Fantastic Four. Since there's four people and they go to the challengers and say, hey, challengers, they're all in the same costume. There are four of them. And what else we got? The Challengers is a great book. And here's the first cover of the Challengers. All in the same outfit. All guys. No bickering. Right? So, we're not going through the Challengers. We're going through Fantastic Four. Now, the myth, which people feel is incorrect, I guess you could say from the Kirby camp. The Kirby camp is saying Stan was moving the furniture out, and Kirby was like, hey, I got some new ideas. I can save it. And he came in with the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four #1 does not have, I can pull up pages. Any of the really early Marvels do not have margin descriptions. So let's just X that out. But they're saying Kirby came in all as is, and then Stan wrote dialogue, right? Now, the initial story was from Stan, right? And Stan said, actually, Marvel wasn't doing superheroes. Marvel was doing post-EC similar comic books and Westerns. Right? Sci-fi stuff, monsters, but it's close to the sci-fi, aliens, space stories. And DC, what was it? I guess it's in 57. Jack Kirby, who was doing very well at DC, was doing Challengers. He was also doing, Sky Masters of the Space Force. And through Sky Masters, he wound up having to leave DC because he owed a royalty of 4% on the strip. Initially, it was supposed to be 5 or 10, and then Jack renegotiated because he was saying he was doing most of the work. He should get 60% of the profits and let the writer get 40 because he had to pay, the letterer and the inker. I think he was the inker, but he had to pay the inker, but he had to pay the inker. So then he, I guess, stopped paying it, and then he got sued, and he was persona non grata at DC, right? So he comes over to Marvel, starts getting work. He did do some writing. I know he wrote The Yellow Claw, issue 2, which had the mutant story. So here we have, the thing is, Stan is at a crossroads at Marvel. He's doing, or Atlas, which is called at that point. And he's being put on to do another book. And he is kind of out of it. And then his wife said, do it how you want to do it, right? But at the same time, the thing is that at the same time, Martin Goodman goes on, I guess it says a golf game, and they say, hey, you're rubbing it in. We have a book called Justice League. We put all our heroes in the book, and it's really successful. And they say Martin Goodman takes this book, gives it to Stan, and says, recreate this book. Like, we want that, and you can use our existing characters. You can use Submariner, Captain America, whoever you want, any of our existing characters. And for some reason, they don't, right? So, what is it? What do I want to say? So, I wanted to point out, I'm well into this thing, right? So, I wanted to point out that if we look at the layout, it's almost like the characters are flopped. The one that's kind of tied up, right, are here. The blondes being held up over here. We have, it's not Speed, but you have the other characters going around here. So it's similar in some ways of just layout. If we think of just a loose drawing layout, this is the similar layout, right? So we're going to go back and forth, right? So we open up headshots of all the heroes, and if you look at it, they have a roll call, right? They have headshots of all the heroes. People never say that Batman and Superman didn't join the group. They're already in the group, right? They just can't do it because they're busy. But they all have some signal from Aquaman because Starro comes, he connects with the stars, the starfish, and Aquaman can hear this, that he wants to take over the world, and he's utilizing the starfish to help him. So Wonder Woman gets the call, and then Superman gets the call, but he's stopping these meteorites. But he already knows the Justice League, right? But he can't do it. Batman can't do it. So it's not as if they're not a part of the team. They just can't show up at this point because they have stuff they're doing, right? So, see, they have 5 and they got 2 seats here. That's for Batman and Superman. So basically, they come in, and then we got some ads. And as the story goes, they're broken up into chapters. So we have Starro versus Green Lantern, and we have Wonder Woman and John Jones versus Starro. I've reversed it. All right. And as a kid, I think, is this in the DC book? We got Flash versus Starro, but you also have Snapper Carr, who is helping out here, right? So that's the basic framework of the story. We have the call to action from this alert. We see all of them in action, coming to the team and doing some things, except for Wonder Woman. She's turning down Steve Trevor, and then they chaptered story. So the Fantastic Four, we're going to look at this, and we have a signal, right? We have, we don't say roll call, but headshots of the heroes. The heroes are not in costume, right? Stan did not want them in costume, right? So that's one big difference from the Challengers. And we have the signal, so they've been alerted. And then just like the other story, we have a setup of them going, but Stan and Jack decided to do something different, having them interact with the regular people, right? So she turns invisible, and she runs into all these people, and they can't see her. And, what would it be like to have these superheroes in the real world? And then we have the Thing, because Atlas been doing monsters. So he gets the call, and he has to get out of his attire, and now he can't even make it through the door. Keep that in mind. Fantastic Four movie, right? But all this is to show you the hero in action and what they can do. So we can see Sue gets invisible. We can see that Ben is strong and durable and destroy a moving car. We see the Torch working on cars, and then he comes ablaze. But unlike this, the heroes are almost freaking out the regular people. They send out the army. He mistakenly melts some of their plane, but the people get out safely, and they send a missile. And then we get to see Reed do his thing, saving them. And then, now, the interesting part about this, the difference is we never got a story of how they connected and all got Justice League signals, right? So we have this origin sandwiched in to the story. I guess it almost could get plucked out. So at some point in the Marvel Universe or at Atlas, it's almost as if they're fixing the Justice League story. So we get to see how they came together, right? Now, this type of subject matter people sneaking up on this. Kirby has done this a million times. He did it with Sky Masters of the Space Force. He's done it with possibly the Space Musketeers. Or the Rocketeers, right? So we had the classic scene. This whole setup here is similar to a Twilight Zone episode. I always say that. What's it called? Third from the Sun, right? Has this whole setup, them driving, someone who's kind of, of the voice of dissension, but he goes along with them. It's not the same way, but then they sneak on. I think this is primal. This is what you should do for the movie, seeing this done as is. Not run away from it. Not run away that these two aren't astronauts, Then we get the crash. Crash is similar. I'm going to show you the challenger to show you the difference of that too, but I wanted to go to here. So they have this origin of the FF, right? And here's the biggest difference, right? At some point, Ben decides he's the voice of dissension this entire time. And Reed has had it, right? And then Ben has also had it with Reed. So he doesn't even care. He wants to get into a fight, doesn't even recognize his own strength. Like anyone, if you're in a fight, you pick up the biggest thing you can see. At his size, he sees a tree being next to nothing, and he pulls it off the ground, and Reed stops it. But then they start to realize what's happening to us, right? Then at the same time, when things get heated, the Human Torch gets heated, right? And they all realize they changed. But I think the thing is really the difference, and it really brings out Stan's dialogue, right? Because he's negative, he's short, he's sarcastic. This is the thing that's missing from comic books, this sort of personality, right? So we back to the story, right? Remember when the Justice League were at the table? We get one of the classic splash pages, a hint of what's going to come next. It's like a second cover. And he talk about the seismic issues that's going on in Australia. And it's actually leading to the Mole Man, right? Oh, and this origin that's here, we've seen the plot for the origin. So it's how they came about it, whether they had a story conference, and then they decided, well, I need to see an origin, and Stan typed up an origin and sent it to Kirby. Plot-wise, not full script, but somehow we still have how the origin got there, right? And we hint at the Mole Man, and then they go into Monster Isle. Ben, of course, doesn't believe it, thinks it's fairy tales. They get out there. They are not in any uniform. They are in just their regular clothing, right? You see, they don't have the same outfits, right? Then they're blinded, and we run into the Mole Man, right? And then we have Sue, and I think Byrne really liked this effect of having, just having her see-through with solid lines. So he utilized that a lot in his run, right? And Thing was extremely gruesome, which I think really worked for the character and really brought out something different than what we've seen in comic books, right? So there's a lot of stuff that we haven't seen from either Stan and Jack in this Fantastic Four. Like this thing, what did you expect? I'm the Thing, ain't I? Right? And he said, now let's go find that skinny loudmouth boyfriend of yours. Oh, Ben, if you only stop hating Reed for what happened to you, right? So it's having this tragedy of them going up in an untested thing is led to him being he's still upset with Reed, right? So, and then at this time, once Stan and Jack figure that the angle is bickering, they go to it like gangbusters, right? And in this story, they had the mole man. He's pulled something. They had to let the mole man go. They don't even capture him, right? It explodes. The mole man destroys Monster Island himself, or at least the entrance to it. But we don't see the Fantastic Four bring him to justice, right? So, and this is one of the things that's really cool about the Fantastic Four is that they don't, it's the powers just keep them alive, right? So I just want to show you there's a lot more similarities to these two books than, well, my last bit. Going to the Challengers, right? Now, the Fantastic Four and the Challengers, besides having 4 people, you consider June as 5, but June is robotics. She doesn't have any, she's not I think only recently they decided to officially say she was the old run had her as a member. So, and the challenge is supposed to be one idea that was the last idea Stan and Jack had together, and they split some ideas, and Kirby left with this. And under his shirt, he had the Spider-Man logo, right? So we see this isn't... Now, the Challengers is really more the Lost Horizon. I bring this up all the time. The Fantastic Four does have an element of this. We have the plane crash. This is what happens in the Lost Horizon. You see the whole setup is not the same as this. We just introduced to their names. It's very much an economy of storytelling because they don't have a lot of room to introduce them. We just show you their names. We see a couple of them on the plane. We see this shot where we get to see them in there crashing. And they say, the watch is, they crash, they survive, and their watch is still running. They're living on borrowed time. So then they're just death cheaters, and then they get this thing to go somewhere else, and they go to this other land, and they run into this magician who has this box, and of course they're the Challengers. They, don't care. They're gonna go try it no matter what. And this is a classic. They do have the poster, the second cover within the story. So there's a similarity of that. The costumes of the Fantastic Four come later. So that's one thing that's also forgotten. And you don't really see any bickering, right? They just talk. There's no clear personalities in between the two of them outside of Ace being the leader because he's the pilot. So he's, and even though the professor may seem a little laid back, Rocky isn't a hothead. Red isn't a hothead either. So, but they do have chapters. This is, for the period. So there's a similarity of that. But Kirby has a lot of Simon in them here, which is great. Right? So, but it's, and the Fantastic Four don't always deal with a lot of science stuff, but they do mostly. Most of the stuff they deal with is science stuff. So we have this, Fantastic Four had a couple of chapters. This has a lot of chapters, so. All right? But we don't see any bickering. We don't see the tragedy. There is the living on borrowed time, but it's not exactly similar. So I think just format-wise, you can see the similarities between the Justice League and the Fantastic Four. The only thing is when people say the big similarity is that there are 4 of the Challengers and 4 of the Fantastic Four. Now, as it going forward, there's a ton of more Marvel books, and I'm pretty sure, as Stan said, a lot of the plotting, went to Jack, and he said they were both writers. So that is not in question. But at the same time, this book here is definitely inspired by the Justice League book. Spinner Rack out.